Today, I'm going to be sharing with you all how to make friends in Calgary. So this is a video that I thought I'd never make in my life because, quite frankly, I thought it was a little bit weird, a little bit cringeworthy, especially given that I record all my videos at home and maybe you guys don't think I ever leave the house. But I was inspired to make this video after watching a Mel Robbins podcast about why making friends as an adult feels next to impossible. And I felt like making a video like this can assist those who have or is planning to make the move to Calgary feel that much more connected. I, for one, have firsthand experience given the first time I moved to Calgary, I felt quite isolated. Like I basically had virtually no friends out here. And it was probably one of the big reasons why I decided to leave Calgary and move back to Toronto the first time. On a side note, super exciting, but I somehow made the news a few weeks ago. I was featured on the Daily Hive and Blog TO'd. I had an editor reach out to me. They actually reached out to me because they watched my previous video of how moving to Calgary has transformed my mental health. They really enjoyed it. They wanted to put the story out there. But I was mentioning how moving to Calgary this time around felt a lot different in a good way. And I think a lot of it had to do with forming social connections early on that has made such a difference that I want to talk about it more in this video. So with that said, if you guys are enjoying what you're hearing so far, I would appreciate you guys could do me a quick favor, smash the like button, the subscribe button, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't done so already. And now let's jump into how to make friends in Calgary, or I guess how I made friends so far. To start off, I actually want to reference back to the podcast as Mel explained how making friends as an adult is no longer a group sport. She refers to it now as an individual sport, in the sense that when you're growing up as a kid going to school, you guys are naturally in the same age group, doing the exact same activities, going to prom, going to university. You're basically all on the same timeline. However, it's not until you actually graduate out of university or college that the rules of friendships have changed. And the thing is, no one kind of actually explained to you that it's changed in the first place. In other words, it sounds a little harsh, but it's basically essentially saying that once you're in your adult life, you kind of have to make friends on your own. You have to plan activities, you have to actually leave the house and be surrounded by people to even have friendship potentially even form. In fact, according to a professor from the University of Kansas, it takes roughly 50 hours of time together to move from mere acquaintances to casual friend, 90 hours to go from that stage to simple friend status, and more than 200 hours before you can consider someone your close friend. Of course, some may read this and start thinking,
well, that person seems pretty cool. Maybe I should start logging in those hours, kind of like high school and logging in those volunteer hours.
But I think the takeaway here is doing things that are within your control. So like you can ask your potential friend or whatever to get food, to hang out or do activities, but just realize that at the end of the day, it's also up to them to also agree. We all know that making friends isn't some magical mathematical formula, or is it? Because according to an author by the name of Scaffer, he expressed that there are 4 building blocks in the formula of creating friendship. He called that friendship equals proximity plus frequency, duration, and intensity. So to break this down a little bit further, he says that for proximity, it is the distance between you and the other person as well as your exposure to them over time. For frequency, it's measured by the total number of contacts that you have with the other person over time. Duration is the amount of time you spend with the other person over time. Intensity is how well you're able to satisfy the other person's psychological and or physical needs by way of verbal and non-verbal behaviors. Honestly, one of the best ways of forming friendships out in Calgary, at least what worked for me so far, is by joining group activities and hobbies. When I moved back to Calgary, literally like 6 months ago, I was faced with a choice. Either I just stay at home and kind of like have a repeat of 2020 of the first time I moved here, or I could just go out there and see what's like out there. So what I did was I joined a run club. It helped that I've done like some races, some marathons in the past, so that's whatever. But I noticed why these clubs are so beneficial for people. And it's that, like many activities, it's not the activity itself where these formations of anything occur. It's that before and after. So I find like before the activity, you're talking and all that sort of thing. And then you do the activity. And then after it, people usually just stay around and talk even more. And that's when I think those formations of any relationship are created. I would also like to highlight that consistency plays a vital role into creating these friendships. Like seeing the same faces over and over again, you just build familiarity. Like I'll give you a funny, jokingly example. Like I will see one person one week and I'm like, absolutely not. And then second week I'm like, okay, fine, you're like tolerable. When they are showing up consistently and you are as well, you know that they probably share the same goals. They're going there for the same reason, and they likely probably live nearby too. And you also want to take advantage that the fact that when you're in Calgary, unlike living in the larger cities like Toronto, everything's a lot closer. So I find that like people are more willing to go to the same things over and over again, or you're bound to even see the same person, just given that things here are just, our commute times are just shorter. So you're likely to see the same person over and over again. And because I had such a positive experience with these clubs, myself and a few other of my friends out in Calgary, we decided to create our own run club out in the city. We're planning to launch it literally next month. So if you have any sort of interest in joining our run club, I'll put the information in the description. Follow us on Instagram. I'm sure you already know this, but it doesn't have to be a run club necessarily. It can be any group activity. So you can do group fitness, book club, hiking groups, just casual sports like rec leagues. These are all great ways to create and meet different people. And I noticed that if it's a little bit too much, I would suggest just doing one activity per week. It's kind of like that saying where if you make one friend, it makes all of the big difference. Like making 2 friends is better. Having 4 friends, you're like, okay. And then like having 10 friends is not the same as like making 1 friend. So like that's what I mean. It's like a diminishing return. Next, I want to talk about the frequency of unplanned interaction being such an important role in the early stages of friendship. Let's use the example of you attending post-secondary education. So like any person that goes to university or college isn't there to pay thousands of dollars to make friends. Like there's better ways to use your money. But you are going to university to get a degree and get a job eventually. But while you're there, these unplanned interactions of seeing that same classmate over and over again, where you're like, first time you give them like a nod or a wave, and then second time you talk about them or with them about the class and all that sort of thing. And then naturally it's just, you form something from just these unplanned interactions. Like it's not forced. And this is why I don't see friendships like a step-by-step process, like you do this and this happens. Like I believe that friendships just naturally grow when you focus on yourself. It sounds cliche, but like you do things that you genuinely love, and like people naturally will gravitate towards that. In my previous video, I talked about how you should do activities that you generally have fun with. And I say this because human beings are very empathic in the sense that you can sense when someone is generally have fun. And naturally it's like when you're having fun, it sounds a little weird, but you're kind of like fire in the sense, right? You're cozy, you're warm, and people naturally will kind of just gravitate towards that. And also at the same time, it helps to be intentional. If you're going to these group activities and you yourself want to make friends with people, like it certainly does help to be the first to say hello or give them a nod or have these micro interactions with people. Like let's state the obvious. Not everyone is going to be your type of people or will be that engaging to you anyways, but like that's out of your scope. All you can control is what you do. So if you are there to form other connections and that's what you want to do, then so be it. I've also realized, and this is not like definitive, but I'll say that you kind of need more than one shared interest. So like if you meet that person, say like at the gym or whatever, it's not until you have that second interest or shared interest that really strengthens that bond. So I'll give you an example of like even myself. So I used to go to a gym out in Toronto. It was a group fitness place, and I met this person just on a consistent basis by familiarity of unplanned interactions. And then I also realized that I was like, oh man, like I have to do real estate. And then it turns out they also do real estate. And then naturally, over time, like when you're going to these activities, you find yourself only talking about these activities. But if now you have that second shared interest, you can talk about that second thing, and it really kind of like strengthens that friendship. How will you know if that person even has that second shared interest? Well, it starts with yourself and going to that single activity in the first place. Last but not least, I would have to say that staying consistent is key. And this is easier said than done, just given that everyone's life is pretty busy. But I think it's important because of that to adopt this detached mindset, or I guess what the podcast actually said, a let them mentality. You have to just realize that you can't force a friendship or any kind of relationship to happen. It either works or it doesn't. Like, there's no set formula other than the one I mentioned from that psychologist author person, where you take these necessary steps and like therefore it will result in this happening. There are just countless of factors that go beyond your control. You could literally be the best boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, or like whatever the case is, and that still doesn't guarantee you that you'll be that person's number one priority. And I've seen this countless of times that people literally get so caught up with things that they cannot control. They stress over friendships that didn't evolve the way they planned. They feel hurt when that person doesn't hang out with them as much as they did, or they get frustrated when that friend starts dating and they're not spending time with them anymore. And that's the thing. That's just life. You can't control other people's priority. Like, you'll naturally just find people's priorities just change. And trying to just force someone to like make yourself the priority just leads to disappointment. So instead, like kind of like what Mel Robbins says in her podcast, have that let them mentality. Let them make plans without you. Let them choose this person over you. Like, who cares? Like, at the end of it, you can't control that. And then paradoxically, at least from what I've noticed, is like the more or the less you care, the more people are somehow drawn to you. It's a weird phenomenon, but just give it a try. To conclude this video, I want to highlight that all the things that I mentioned, I feel that many of us already know what we need to do to form connections, form friendships. I find the difficulty is understanding more why you're unable to do so, like why you're unable to step outside or go to these classes or do these activities, whether that's fear, rejection, all that sort of thing, because like, trust me guys, I've been there. It's scary to do or put yourself out there. Like personally for myself, I noticed that when I'm working from home all day and I didn't interact with any people other than like boring meetings, and then when I go out there, I'm not usually in a very social flow or want to interact with anyone because I'm not using those sort of like social skill muscles, if that makes sense. But I've noticed that what worked for me is I noticed that I am happiest when I'm moving my body. So like I noticed that like when I'm going for a run, exercising, or doing group fitness classes, I'm definitely, when I enter it, not in that right state of mind, but during and after it, I feel like $1,000,000. It's like understanding what clicks with you. So it doesn't have to be exercise if it's not for you, but I challenge you to find what that is. It's sort of funny because I'm sure you've seen this over on the internet, but there's that whole saying of the more authentic you are, the smaller your friend circle is, and then the more fake you are, the larger your friend circle is. And like, to each their own, but choose the authentic side, the smaller friend group, I'm telling you. But anyhow, with that said guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video of how to make friends out in Calgary. I'm just sharing my experience of like what worked for me, because I do believe when you move to a new city like Calgary or any Canadian city, it's quite daunting and it's scary, and I think knowing people really does help. So I really hope this video helped you guys. If you're wondering about this lovely entertainment setup, I recently got that finished, so I hope that looks really nice for you guys. And yeah, if you have any comments, let me know in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Instagram, and I guess I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.